All right, everybody, welcome back to our ongoing, but maybe the finale, which is maybe the finale here today of our study of this really wonderful little section of the Zohar, the Yanuka. Um, Zevi, how you doing? Welcome back.
Good to be here with you, Justin. I hope I'm not in poor form today after drinking for some 72 hours straight after the Purim Carnival that's going on here.
Oh, good for you. I need to go on a Purim bender. I'm going to New Orleans in a few weeks to visit my brother, and so New Orleans is a great town for a bender. So maybe I'll do my Purim drinking there. I didn't get to do any good Purim drinking this year, but
There's what they say. There's always the Pesach Sheni. There's always a second chance. You can always make up for it.
yeah. Purim Sheni sounds like a real dangerous thing, but um, yeah. So we may wrap up, folks, today. We may wrap up the Yanuka, but we're planning some kind of like bigger wrap up session that may have something's going to happen. That we'll do some final sort of wrap up on the Yanuka. But is Evie looking back before we jump back in? Do you want any reflections on the stuff we covered last time? A lot of like really dick duck kind of mining out that Matt called the Yanuka pedantic, which is
Right.
fantastic. I still love the idea of a pedantic 6-year-old or something. Um,
It also
oh,
took him so long to call him pedantic, like only now.
yeah, you're right. I think the straw that broke the back, or for Matt as a translator, was his grammar mistakes. He was like
Mm,
doing all
mm.
this sort of amazing grammatical stuff, but it was all like based on basically him misunderstanding and misrepresenting the Masoretic text. Um,
Yeah, I think you're right. Matt's okay with the Yanuka being nitpicky, but if he's wrong about it, then you're being pedantic.
yeah,
Like
oh
you're
yeah,
nitpicky and you're wrong.
right, yeah. You can't be both. You got if you're gonna do these, if you're gonna do some innovations of Torah, they got to actually be based on real, actual letters that are really there, not not you just, uh, not you just like, yeah. Let me read it this way, even though the
I
Masoretic
love
text
that.
says.
There's no vav, and now let's make your reading as if there's no vav. It's like there happens to be a vav. Well, that's not. Don't let the facts get in the way of a good drush.
Yeah, exactly,
That's
exactly. So
fantastic.
that was a really funny one. Speaking of grammar, that we have a maybe as we're chatting, I'll pull it up. But there's another Masoretic text thing in this one as well that we'll have to maybe show folks. I'll pull it up on Safari or something. But any thoughts for last time before we jump in?
I mean, I think there were some really beautiful parts last before we got to all the grammar. We had this whole thing of the black but beautiful,
Hmm.
the shrunken yud, how the Shekhinah responds to the divine love. Is it diminished by that love? Is it expanded by that love? That was last time? That was last time, right?
Yeah. It was both, right? It was both how she's roused by the divine masculine, but also how that shrinking and expanding also happens in relationship to the righteousness and the wickedness of the world. Like she
Yeah,
cringes at the wickedness, the
yeah.
wicked make her cringe, which I love that.
And it's this ontological or metaphysical cringing. She's
Mhm.
diminished, like the moon is diminished. And I think I love that. I think there's a lot of reasons why we turn to a great text, and the Zohar truly is a great text. A lot of reasons why we turn to a great text like the Zohar, and part of it is for many it's religious, devotional, it's sacred, it's a divine service to connect to God. But I think a great text transcends all of those, and it's here to teach us something about being human, about humanity itself, and these reflections on the nature of love. What does love do for us as love is, and how does it sometimes make us feel as big as the universe, and sometimes make us feel as small as the yud? I think there's a lot of just good, and we can disagree and we can agree, but a lot of just very good human reflection about the nature of love from people that lived human lives, and were able to record that in an incredibly poetic and mythological language. And if we can unpack that, we might be able to learn something about ourselves, about love. Who knows?
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree that, again, coming from my perspective as a person who, I'm not a supernaturalist. For me, I'm not learning about God or anything like that. At least from the way that I'm coming at this text. But yeah, I am learning about, um, the sort of the way that the Zohar conceptualizes reality. It's just a
Mm,
really great exercise and getting inside the head of the folks that wrote this and really saying, oh yeah, there's really cool lessons to be mined out of this, and they don't have to I don't have to have some theological underpinnings for them to be impactful. And it's a beautiful, fun text. I also say it's fun. I really like how the writers of this text are really having. You can tell they're having a blast.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate the fact that we often treat mysticism as so heavy and so sacred. As if the sacred and the sacred and the hilarious have no space to share. And clearly, the sacred and the hilarious have a lot of space to share. Clearly, the comic relief of the arrogance of the Yanuka is just. I find it to be just really. It's very inviting. It's a very inviting text in that way. The Zohar can be so intimidating.
Yeah.
But
it's still, I mean, it's still intimidating.
Yeah, it's still very intimidating,
but a lot of fun. That's so true, and I think somehow, Umberto Eco wrote The Name of the Rose about, and I won't spoil it for people, but basically about how laughter is like the most dangerous thing for religion, and in other faiths, if I'm not mistaken, in Islam, one of the 99 names of God is the humorous. And it makes, if humor is a positive quality, then God, the possessor of all positive qualities by definition, is also humorous, and it's just such a different way of seeing it. And there's so much humor and playfulness and revelry and this bravado and the challenge and the war. And they're having so much fun, and they're engaging in this war amongst themselves, between themselves, and more perhaps orthodox, those of the same period, and it's a lot of fun, and the fun is still apparent. However, how many centuries later, however you are going to count that, it's still there for the taking. What a gift.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's why I'm really glad that we're doing this study to introduce people to authentic Zohar. Right, we're still in the English. We're coming a little bit from the original languages when we can, but the Zohar is one of these texts that gets talked about a lot and doesn't get studied a lot. At least in I don't think it doesn't get studied a lot. And I think that I hope that this 9 weeks we've been doing the Yanuka gives people abyssal Zohar, a taste of just how fun this text can be and how deep it can be without having to talk about how holy it is and how inaccessible it is and how blah blah blah. That it can be a little bit more accessible to folks. And again, to Daniel Matt's credit,
absolutely,
that really is, he's really the rock upon which we're able to do this. So I really,
very true. In many ways, we're just expanding his work here, or utilizing his work here. Yeah, was it Voltaire that said that sacred texts are revered but not read, or something?
The Bible's more celebrated than known.
So and I think also we can show people a way of reading the text. I mean, we do, to be transparent, we bring a lot of prior knowledge to it, but I hope we can demonstrate that there's a way to read this text, and firstly and foremostly by doing it in partnership, in what's called chavruta. The text is written as a group of people. It's a chabura. It's a holy brotherhood that are writing, and find a brotherhood, find a sisterhood, and read the text together. And I hope like this isn't. I hope people that have joined us for these weeks don't feel like when this ends, it's the end of their engagement with this text or with other great texts. Like, go forth and study.
Yeah, it's all. And again, we're living in the golden age, I would say, of accessibility, which is to me just fantastic. That we're in a situation where, we can read this text, we can study it publicly. We don't have to worry about being persecuted or something. We have access to it in our native languages. It's just, we were living in a golden age in which our ancestors, study for them could be dangerous. And it was inaccessible, and getting a copy of the Zohar was very difficult, and you had to be the elite of the elite, and certainly had to be a man and in the rabbinical circles, etc. It's just lovely to know that those barriers have been eradicated for the most part, and we are living in a period where we can just jump on the internet and study Zohar together. It's or any mystical any text. Doesn't have to be the Zohar, any text. We're just we're doing great. It's really, really a fantastic situation.
100%. This is what the Kabbalists call the pritzus. It's the shattering of all boundaries, and for them that's a very messianic thing. For them, it's indicative of the chance for the light of the Zohar, which is a text which, according to its authors, is supposed to usher in messianic light. And without getting too messianic here, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Hey, The publicizing of the mysteries was like, it was a huge deal in the 17th century. So it went off the rails a little bit.
Right.
But what are they going to do? So for folks, we're in 292, right, Zevi? Is that right?
292.
Yeah,
It's
292 in the Pritzker. If folks want to follow along, we're somewhere deep, buried in volume 319b,
119.
119b. Yeah, right. Yep. And I can pull it up on Safari, but if folks want to follow along, that's where we are. But you want to start, Zevi? Or me start?
Why don't you start, Justin? I think you might enjoy the Christological undertones of this paragraph.
Yeah, this is very. Yeah, we definitely get into some of this stuff. All right, classic Zohar sentence, folks. This is like the kind of sentence the Zohar loves to use. Mystery of the matter is written in the mystery above, right? So we get two razas in there. Mystery of the matter is written in the mystery above. What is his name, and what is the name of his son, if you know? So this is a quote from Proverbs 34. The name is well known, right? It's Yud-Ke Vov-Ke Tzevaot, right? The Lord of the hosts is his name. So we learn that from Isaiah 47.
If anyone wants to learn more about Yud-Ke Vav-Ke,
Yeah, there's apparently a video on Esoterica about. Although I would say that the Yud-Ke Vov-Ke and Yahweh they had party company at some point. That those gods became a lot of transformation happened in that. So the name. So we know the name, right? It's Yud-Ke Vov-Ke Tzevaot. So this is the Lord of the hosts. The hosts are the angelic army from Isaiah. But what is the name of his son? Well, the name of his son is Israel. His name, as it is written, my son, my firstborn, is Israel, from Exodus 4:22. So, this is a place where the Zohar is answering a pretty profound mystery, and it's funny because this is sort of a throwaway parak. Like he doesn't really build on this hardly, and he kind of just says it right after this other section. But this is a really this is a parak that, if you've ever studied Tractate Sanhedrin and the Talmud, you'll know that they spend a lot of pages talking about the true name of God and the true name of God's son. So at any rate, the name here is revealed to be Adonai Tzevaot, and his son's name is revealed to be Israel. Of course, this is a clear polemic against Christianity, right? His name is certainly not Jesus, at least in this text. And all the keys of faith dangle from this Israel, and he glorifies himself, saying, Yud-Ke Vov-Ke said to me, you are my son, from Psalm 2:7. Certainly so. For father and mother have crowned him and blessed him with many blessings and commanded all. And this is a very famous and very mysterious verse that no one knows what it means. Kiss the son, right? This is also from Psalms. Kiss the hand of the son. Right, Neshekuvar. We know no one knows what Neshekuvar means. It's a complete mystery. Christians associate it with Christianity, but the truth of the matter is no one knows what it means. Kiss the hand of the Son. He has, as it were, been given dominion over all, so that all will serve him. So what's going on there, right? It's more stuff from the Sefirot. So what we have is certainly so for the father and mother have crowned him and blessed him with many blessings. So it's Tiferet, right? Tiferet, the glory of Israel, is the son. And so who crowned him? It would have to be what, Bina and Chokhmah? Would that be right? That's the divine. Yeah, it's Ima and Abba, right? That's like at least of the Partsufim.
Judgment and compassion would be Chesed and Gvura.
Right, but I don't think
and then the mother and father would be Chachma and Bina.
Yeah, so I think it's the father and the mother here are Chokmah and Bina.
Right.
So that's what's crowning Tiferet, the son, right? And the Partsufim, right, folks, are just ways of configuring the Sefirot, and those configurations include Abba and Ima, which mother and father, and those are typically bina and chokhmah, which is odd because typically those are not. We don't get. This is one of the things I think is interesting about reading the Zohar. It's very interesting how, what's the right word for the, keter, chokhmah, and bina. They're very weakly interacting. They don't really interact aside from the shefa, the flow they provide. You don't really see them really interacting with the lower seven sefirot very much. It's because they're so far removed and so distant. I use the term weakly interacting as if they're like tachyons or something. But this is a case where they are, right? And I think that's a big deal, right? When they do interact and they crown Tiferet, Israel Tiferet, that is I think the Kabbalist, the ears of the Kabbalist perk up when those are interacting. But again, I think that we get this verse, this Nesheku Var verse. I think this is really clearly meant to show, again, it's sort of Trinitarian language, but Trinitarian language that's being polemically used against Christianity at some level to show, no, there is a Trinity operating in the divine realm, but it's not Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. It's the dynamics within the Sefirot.
It's really very strange what's going on here, because bar is obviously son in Aramaic. Everyone knows that from bar mitzvah. There you go. If you thought you didn't know Aramaic, actually you did know some. So it's ben is son, and bar is in Hebrew, and then bar in Aramaic. But what's really weird here is that bar, when this verse from Psalm 1 verse 12 is being read between Jews and Christians throughout the Middle Ages and until today, the Jews are going to read bar as purity, which is what bar means in Hebrew.
Mm-hmm.
And Christians are going to read it as son, and nashku as to kiss the sun, or pay homage to the sun. For the Christian, that's Jesus. And the Jew is always going to say, no, bar means purity. This is the chapter is being written in Hebrew, not in Aramaic, and you can't decide to change one word into Aramaic. It means nashku bar. It means to come armed with purity. So these are diametrically opposed readings, and I mean we could look back, but I think like going all the way back to the polemics of the Middle Ages, Nachmanides, like this is already established readings, and here the Zohar is reading it on the Christian reading, right? It's reading
but
by
I think on purpose, right?
So you're saying it's reading it against the Christian?
Yeah, it's reading
even
it. It's
in
saying
Aramaic.
it's a internal criticism. It's like, even if you want to read it as son, it's not the son you're thinking of. It's it's Tiferet Israel. That's what.
Right.
And the Father and the Mother are not the God the Father and the God the
Right.
Holy Spirit.
Right.
It's
Right.
Chokhmah and Binah.
Right.
So like anything you can do, we can do better. Like we can out Trinity your Trinity. That it's really a internal criticism.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, and I don't know like how long we should or want to dwell on this, but I mean this replacing of Jesus for the people of Israel is a common point that goes on in Jewish Christian polemics. Most famously, the suffering servant of Isaiah is read by Christians as Jesus, and is read by Jews as the people of Israel. So the replaceability or the question of who's it referring to? Who is the firstborn child? Is it B'ni B'cher Yisrael, is my firstborn child Israel, or is it Jesus? And that's always going back and forth between them. But what you're saying here, they're out reading the Christian of you have the Father, the Mother, and the Son, and they're giving us Chachma, Bina, and Tiferet, the Sfirot, is fascinating, because the Christians will then outread that when it comes to the Renaissance. They'll take that back
into Randall is going to say,
exactly.
and
Tiferet is Jesus, and that's why like this reading is actually pointing to Jesus. And like, so it gets really like both camps that are like playing each other's cards back and forth. And by the time you get to the 14th century, it gets real messy.
Yeah. And this is the dangerous, the danger of like using the master's tools to take the master's house apart when you implicitly accept the logic of the hegemon. Then it's only a matter of time until that very logic is then reversed upon you. So yeah, I think that the Zohar is playing a very dangerous game here, and I think it ultimately, paid pretty poor dividends in the end.
Yeah.
Because it allowed Christian Kabbalah to arise, basically to appropriate this kind of language, and then and again use the language of the Dominicans to use the daggers of the Jews against them.
Right.
And that's
Right.
certainly what Pico della Mirandola was doing
Yeah.
at some level.
Flavius
Um,
Mithridates, many of them.
yeah, Flavius Mithridates for sure, and he was a
Yeah.
convert.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it also had a boon. You have people like Johannes Reuchlin, who was who said, yeah, like these texts need to be preserved and not
Right.
subject to
Right.
destruction. So
Right.
it's a very double-edged sword. But yeah,
Right.
this is a very dangerous game. I think the Zohar is playing when it's when it's developing its own kind of counter Christology.
Right.
And I think that's
Its own Kabbalistic trinity.
yep, and it backfired. I mean, well, it backfired and didn't, right? It's also part of the reason why I bet some of these texts survive.
I mean, it's a very interesting question of like in the historical scope, what is a successful polemic and what's not. I mean, was the translation of a lot of Kabbalah into Kabbalah Denudata like something which was that good? Was that bad? Was this something? I mean, these are. I mean, it becomes a question of what our talk. It's a very difficult question, but
Sure.
I think in a narrow sense, if they thought that this interpretation would just knock the wind out of the Christian sail, and they would certainly not.
Yeah.
What's also fascinating is how none of what we're discussing right now is none of this is apparent in the text. This is all just between the lines. But for anyone who knows, the history of Jewish Christian polemics and what follows from that, it's very clear that this is what's happening. But an unobserved reader could be, and this is why they're writing what is Leo Strauss's terminology of sort of this double writing, that for people that are reading them, they're just giving a nice little George and Pirish and no harm, no foul. But really there is a lot of foul and maybe even some harm here, and there's a lot going on right here.
Yeah. This section, and again, I think it's when it introduces mystery of the matters written in the mystery above, like that double mystery language. That's
the
Zohar.
mainstream.
Yeah, the Zohar is flagging itself as saying,
Yeah.
we're about to drop a bomb on you.
Yeah.
And this is we're about to sail directly into really dangerous waters by directly polemicizing against Christianity, but couched in the language of the Zohar. But again, I think anytime you see those kind of, and sometimes the Zohar will use it just as window dressing, but that Raza de Raza stuff is typically a flag to like we're about to really move and shake.
Yeah.
But
yeah, there's also I think it might also be relevant to this section that we're picking up here today. Is really, we're about to see, is a continuation of last week's reading. This whole question of which we're about to see, the relationship between the mother and child, between the father that doesn't know the blessing, does know the blessing, and I think I mean it's by whatever happened, coincidence or providence that we're reading them separately, but I think it would have been a different reading had we have read them concurrently. And I recommend. I don't know how much we're going to get back into last week's, but I recommend people having that in mind, and people that want to see more here to read this as a continuation of where we came from.
For sure. I'll continue to the next two paragraphs because it kind of wraps up this parak a little bit. Lest he rage, right? So this is the end of that section from Psalms. For they have adorned him with judgment and compassion, judgment for the one deserving of judgment and compassion for the one deserving of compassion. So because Tiferet is coming from Chokhmah and Binah, that also means that the flow from Chesed and Gevurah is also on top of Tiferet as well. That's in fact what Tiferet is. It's just the balance of those two forces. And of course, it's judgment for those who need it and compassion for the others. All blessings of above and below reach the Son, adorning him, and whoever withholds blessings from this Son will have his sins again specified before the Holy King, La'aim, but really to the mother. And again, I love the gender bending language here, right? That it's to the mother, just to the king. And remember that at this moment, Shekhinah has been resurrected. So from her tiny dotness, her tiny yodness, it is now resplendent as a king.
Yes.
And so she's standing as a king before her angels, And again, I love the gender bending language is just so lovely that the before the Holy King, but La'aim, really, it's the motherly king.
Yeah.
Um, so again, we have the Zohar just really loving to transcend these. We think of the Zohar, we think of Hebrew, we think of Kabbalah as being hyper essentialist when it comes to gender, and
Hmm.
often it is.
Hmm.
But at the very moment that it reaches the apex
Hmm.
of that language,
Hmm.
it's happy just to like invert it,
Hmm.
right? To push and pull with you. So like on the one hand, yeah, you can say that the Zohar is very binarism when it comes to gender, and it's very essentializing the masculine, feminine, the masculine, divine feminine. But at the apex of the moment, it all becomes very topsy turvy. The divine king is La'aim, is a mother.
I think precisely because they've constructed such well defined and otherwise rigid categories of masculinity and femininity, and that runs through their entire systems. When they're played with, it has all the more power. Right? When we reach that apex, as you're saying, and we're now going to talk about the mother king. It's doing a lot more. It's carrying a lot more with it. Had we not have built up all of the associations of what is kingship, what is motherhood, what is, and it's and there's and they're clearly they're reaching the mystery of the mystery. They're reaching the peaks, and in that peak, they're showing. The mystic has two sides. The mystic can be an essentialist, and the mystic can be the paradoxical, who all things become all things, and but it's something. But there is a sense where we're holding on to that essentialism until a certain point, and then we let go of it,
Right.
and which makes that drop all the more impactful.
Yeah, and I think it does what many mystical texts do well, which is to make you think paradox, to make
Hmm.
you dwell and become comfortable with paradox.
Hmm.
And I think that's of the many things that are very rewarding for me about reading mystical texts as a person who is very given to logic. I'm a logician all day long. And one of the things I love about reading mystical texts is that they really challenge me to sit with paradoxes, which is a thing that I'm not comfortable sitting with.
Hmm.
And most people really aren't. They say they are, but they're not, because most people don't deal with actual paradoxes very often. They deal with tough things. Um, but the Zohar is just like, nope. Now we're going to live in a paradox world where and it's just what you said, Zevi. We've set up these categories, and you've worked with these categories so long, and now we're going to
Pull the rug.
we're going to pull the rug out from underneath you. So now
Hmm.
we have the mother king at this. And again, the language here of sort of smashing, as we'll see in just a minute, is going to be really important. I think that we've just really smashed
Hmm.
some of these categories, and we're about to get to some smashing language here in just a moment. But anything on that section before we continue? I mean, we kind of worked our way all the way down the Sephirotic tree, right? So Bina and Bina and Chesed, and like we've kind of worked our way down to Tiferet.
Yeah.
And of course down to Malchut now, because we're talking about the king of the world of the mother king.
Oh,
And of course
interesting.
Netzach and Hod, are getting short shrift, but they always do.
Yeah, poor Netzach and Hod. No one pays attention to the feet, and they deserve attention. They deserve
They do,
attention.
yeah.
Matt has the mother here as Bina.
Yeah,
the-
that's
which is interesting because I thought as well that we were moving into Malchut territory.
yeah.
I
Because it
mean,
makes some sense because of the mirroring, right?
yeah,
That Bina
yeah,
is kind of the supernal mother, and
yeah,
the transcendent mother, literally,
and the lower and
yeah, yeah.
the imminent
That,
mother.
not to no shade to Daniel Matt, with all respect. But it seems like to me that if we read La'aim the way, I mean, that is the way it's read earlier, right? That is the way that when
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, the Zohar certainly can, um, interplace Bina and Malchut. That's not a challenge for it. But the question is which one is more. And it seems if we're moving into Shechina, and we should be moving more into Malchus here.
yeah,
But
that it makes more logical sense to me, and to me, it's the Zohar loves those like isomorphisms that you get, those like upper lower mirrorings, and to me that just seems like a, Yeah, I don't know,
There's
but
another inversion on the Christian point here, which is that the Christian Trinity is between the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And here we have the Jewish Trinity, if we can say that, and it's between the Mother, the Son, and insert your sphere here. It's the Mother who plays the central role here. It's not the Father, right?
yeah, and I think that's self-conscious too. I think it's the Christian Trinity also kind of has a, not exactly, but the divine family has a kind of mirror image on the earth, right, with Jesus and his mother. And I
Mm,
think that anytime, not anytime, the Zohar is happy to also polemicize against the Marian cult by kind of
mm,
co-opting the emergent Marian cult as the Shekhinah cult.
right.
And I think that what could be happening here as well is this is also kind of shading on on and again, think of the language that's used of Mary, right? Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. That Hail Mary, it's like that's king language.
Mm, mm,
And one
mm,
could, Ave Maria, Ave has a kind of like hail, like, and the fact that we have a mother, a kingly mother,
mm,
and a Ave Maria. I don't know. It's maybe a
mm.
stretch, but the Zohar is never beyond doing some Shekhinah Marian kind of inversions.
Yeah, and I think we may have mentioned this once or twice before, but for anyone that's interested in pursuing this line of thought, there's some great work which has been done both by Ben Arach and by Yehuda Libes that follows this line of thought. I don't know how much of it is in English, how much in Hebrew, but it's there.
Yeah, I think this is a really good essay by Ben Arach on the whole Christological stuff that's in English. But
Yeah.
I think the big article is like, what is it? Sodo Hakoha.
So Yanuka?
Yeah. So yeah, I think but I think it's in Hebrew.
We'll have to wait till someone translates that for the masses.
Yeah.
Shall we continue?
Yeah, let's go. Do you want to pick up?
Sure. But there will be blessing l'rosh mashpir on the head of the provider, which is the end of the verse from last week's reading about the one who withholds grain will be cursed, but there'll be a blessing on the head of the provider. Whoever recites the blessing and invites the one who should be invited with the cup of blessing, so this is the child speaking, thereby smashes the other side, the sitra achra, the dark side, who is overwhelmed while the side of holiness ascends. This is what is written, but there will be a blessing on the head of the mashpir, the smasher, just as he elevates and blesses the Holy One and causes the other side to be shattered, so the blessed Holy One draws upon him from above, and the one called blessing settles upon his head. What the Yanuka is doing here is playing with this word mashpir, which can either mean provider, as we've been reading up until now, or it can be read from the Hebrew word shabur or lishbor as the smasher, the one who breaks. And he's saying, and he's reading them together, which is that when we allow the blessing to, and remember, a lot of this debate in the Yanuka has just been about who gets to bless, right? It's been one. It's kind of funny. If anyone's been at like an Orthodox or religious like a Shabbat table, sometimes before you make the final blessing, like you invite for the blessing, right? Which we'll be discussing here. And it's like a bit of this like ego thing. It's like, who's going to invite? It's like this false humility. Will you invite? Will I invite? No, you. No, please. Okay. No, him. And so, and here we're saying this, just like elaborated for pages and pages and pages, right? And so the Yanuka is saying here that that by giving the chance to the right person to recite the blessing, they're doing two things. They're providing the blessing for the fruit provided, but they're also smashing the other side, the sitra achra, in the act of blessing, which ascends the holiness. Because when one goes up, the other comes down. So providing to one is smashing the other. And just as he elevates and blesses the Holy One, causes the other side to be shattered, so the Holy Blessed One draws upon him from above the one called blessing, which Matt says refers to Shekhinah. And Shekhinah descends upon his head, which is continuing this theme that it's the mother, the kingly mother descends upon the one who elevates the holy side in the act of reciting the blessing. And we're going to see that we're moving here towards finally making the blessing. Is that all right so far, Justin? Did I get that
Yeah,
right?
I don't think I had a lot to add. I will say that this is a place where Matt doesn't like the Yanuka, where he's making bad
Mm,
puns and stuff. This is a case where it's a great pun. I really like
mm,
this one.
mm,
The difference between provider and smasher, because I love
yeah.
how it's an auto antonym, right? I love words like cleave in
Mm-hmm.
English, right? Cleave means to both hang on to very tightly, but also to cut, to separate
Right,
something.
right,
And
right.
I love the idea that the word mashbir, depending on how you want to read it, can mean provider, but also smasher. And those are, it's
Mm,
kind of has this auto antonymic
mm,
quality to it, which is this grist for the mill, I think, of mystical. Again, we're talking about paradoxes, and we're in a world of paradox, and so it's a neat literary move to literally introduce a kind of paradox
mm, mhm.
that the provider and the smasher are the same thing, that they're in fact they're doing the same kind of work. So I
Yeah,
really do appreciate that wordplay. I think is really clever.
that's yeah. I love that. It's a literary. It's a literal paradox
Mhm.
in this sense. He's also, based on what we're saying, the motherly king. We could say that he's also smashing the patriarchy.
Yeah, we could say that.
Um, uh,
Says two dudes studying a book written by a bunch of medieval dudes about a bunch of medieval dudes. um, um, but yeah, I take it. I take it. I think that
the violence of it is interesting, right? But we do speak about, when we speak about Sitra Achra, when we speak about the other side, like it's often a violent language, right? We're destroying, we're smashing, we're eradicating, we're uprooting, we're burning. Like it's quite like we see that throughout the poetry, the liturgy, the poetry of the Kabbalists.
Mhm. Although it's interesting that they've abandoned the whole dual language. Notice that we don't have any more of
Mm,
that. There's
mm,
no more of that anymore.
mm.
Through the end of Yanuka, there's no more. Um, all that
Was
language has been sort of put aside. I haven't seen them. It's been a couple of a couple pages since they've used that language.
was there a point where the duel ended? Do we have a conclusion to the duel? Do you remember that, Justin?
It's a good question. I would have to go.
Maybe in one of the previous, like, congratulations, they reached their final bout.
Yeah, I think that the last time it's on 287. I think that's the last time
Right. Now
that
I
I
surely
remember.
know that your weapons are fine if you remember them and don't forget them.
Yeah,
Suddenly,
Rabbi Eliezer rejoiced and Rabbi Abba and the companions
right,
rejoiced. Yeah, maybe it's at the top of 288 is when the actual duel comes to an
ends.
end. So now it's just
Right,
the after party.
right.
Um,
Well, I'm glad they're no longer slinging stones and lances. They can sit down and they can now they can now chill out a little.
yeah, yeah. All right. Do
Yeah.
you want to
Now,
continue?
companions, give and we will bless. Hav v'nivrach. And Matt says, give is the cup of wine. Traditionally, the blessing of the grace after meals in Judaism is recited over a goblet of wine, a kosh shel bracha, a cup of blessing. They gave him the cup, and we've been really moving up to this moment of, like, him finally getting the cup. Right? Remember weeks ago, he took the cup and his hands were trembling. Like,
Mhm.
this has been can he hold the cup? This is the drama. They gave him the cup, and he blessed. All the companions were in joy, for since the day of Rabbi Eliezer's wedding celebrations, the companions had not delighted as on the day that they sat there. Which is a huge statement. Huge. Because the wedding of Rabbi Eliezer and the wedding of the protagonist of the story is a metaphysical moment.
Mhm.
It's a moment when Chachma and Bina and Tiferes and Malchus are being united with one another, right? That's how the Kabbalah is describing it. It's cosmic Heros Gamos reunions that are taking place, and the human characters are mirroring that, embodying that, affecting that, whatever language is appropriate in those cases. So to say that in this moment, the joy was as great as the joy, or they hadn't experienced it since the day of that wedding, is a metaphysical statement. They're saying that in him taking the cup and blessing and reaching this conclusion, it's the smashing the Sitra Achra, bringing down the Shekhinah. They're affecting what is affected by the greatest of mystical events, which for the Kabbalists is a wedding, the divine, the marital, the sexual union. So that's a tremendous statement that they're saying there.
No, absolutely. You're absolutely right that it is it is not to be understated what they just said there.
It's not like we had a good time at that wedding. We haven't had a good time since then.
Yeah, no, right. This is the again, it shows you how powerful the Zohar conceives of the Yanuka and his Torah. And yeah, I mean, we've done this whole work, right? So much of what's been going on in the Yanuka so far has been this Hyros Gamos, and kind of reaches its crescendo at the moment where the cup is blessed and the other side is smashed.
Yeah.
And again, you get this sort of messianic character, right, where he blesses and he smashes the other side, and you get the sense it's done. Like the other side's actually defeated. Like, of course, it's not. But you get a sense that there's sort of a messianic moment. And again, it's not to belabor the point, but the Christological imagery, right, of the Last Supper, right? Jesus picking up the cup and blessing it, and that's the moment where at some level he's, the Judas kiss, and he's defeated it. He will defeat death. And here the Yanuka is in some level, he's taught the mysteries of the Torah. They've reunited the Sefirot. They've blessed the cup. They've smashed the other side. Done and done.
And there's going to be consequences, just like the final supper didn't end smoothly.
No, and it will not end. It's going to end. I think it's going to end badly.
Yeah, it's going to end badly. What's it called? A spoiler alert. Yeah. It's also the imagery here of him when the Kabbalists are trying to smash the klipat, the other side, the Sitra Achra. There's what they refer to as the miniyat. There are the hindrances, the obstacles that are in the way, and we've seen constant obstacles. And whether those were from within the Yanuka, whether those were from the companions, and everything had to align perfectly, right? One time he couldn't hold the cup. One time they didn't let him hold the cup, and now he's at peace with himself. He's at peace with them. He's at peace with his mother. He's with his father. There's a lot of healing that had to go on here. They had to wage war until they could come to this point that he can finally pick up the cup and bless. And it's been a journey to get there.
Right. And again, it's such a funny thing, right? Because we don't think of eating dinner as a torturous metaphysical, spiritual, mystical journey. But again, that's the very rabbinical idea that's still populating here in the Yanuka, that the table is the temple. We are doing holy work. There's nothing more holy than what takes place at the table. And the Shulchan is the Beis Hamikdash, and it's, I think, beautiful that the most mundane thing, eating dinner, becomes in the Yanuka the site of spiritual, metaphysical, messianic redemption. So lovely. It's lovely imagery.
100%. One of the most pronounced, I think, what's the right term here? Techniques of Yinu Mystica in the Zohar is literally eating on Shabbos. Like, it's the Soid HaAchila, it's the Zivug HaAchila. Like, it's funny. It's funny. Like, people don't know that, but it's 100%, and so beautiful that it's the most mundane. And that's what it is, right? What is this whole Yinu Mystica? What is this whole Zivug? It's taking the most mundane in our lives and elevating them to a place of presence and importance and dignity. Like, that's really what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if folks want to get into this, the mysticism around hunger and thirst and eating and drinking, it's just amazing. Like Heidevich has, I think, one of the most amazing poetry about that, and one of my favorite sermons that Meister Eckhart ever gave was a sermon on hunger. I think it's one of the best he ever did. But yeah, again, this is a great place where I'm not much of a comparativist when it comes to mystical literature or literature in general, but there is a whole literature. One could make a really amazing anthology of just hunger, thirst, eating, drinking, mysticism.
Yeah, absolutely. If in more of the Jewish realm, I would recommend Joel Hecker's Mystical Bodies, Mystical Meals, which is really, I think, the most comprehensive survey on the Kabbalistic side of that, which is.
I've never read that. Check that out. Thank you for that recommendation, Zevi.
Of course, my pleasure. Um, let me take us to the next opening, and then I'll pass back the baton. They rose early and blessed him joyously with fervor. Joy and fervor, ahava and yira, this two sides, the two wings of flight. The child said, "This is great. You should not depart except with words of Torah." And so we have learned a famous Talmudic line that we don't separate from friends, but with a word of Torah. And I love this, like, because we haven't been there's been no Torah up until now. Like, we have to. He gets in his last word of Torah, and it's beautiful, and it's their whole life. I mean, for the Jew, for the sage, it's kihem chayenu. This is life itself, and every moment. It's like when you wake up in the morning and when you go to sleep at night. This is what the Bible tells us. Every time is a time for Torah, for wisdom, for study. And here, before they depart, following good rabbinic dictum, he gives them word of Torah.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's also just this is also, I think, really prescient, and I think most people know what's about to happen. This is, at least so far as the Zohar is concerned, these are the last words of Torah we ever get from the Yanuka. This is his farewell Torah as far as the Zohar is concerned. And so I think that when we read this section, study it, the Zohar knows that this is it. This is his last his final Torah. So I think that there's something it's an unsurprising last bit of Torah, because it is so it's going to be exactly what you would imagine it to be.
And what a great bit of Torah it is, yeah. And it's the last, both literarily, it's the last that's going to appear in this literary segment, and as you're saying, and as far as they're painting this character, it's the last thing that he'll say for ever. I don't hear you, Justin. I still don't hear you. I don't know if that's me or if that's on your side. Maybe I don't know if this is the Sitra Achra trying to stop us from concluding. I don't hear you. Let me see if there's something, if the people in the chat are hearing. Let us know in the chat.
How about now?
Now we hear you.
Yeah, I hit the mute. I must have hit the mute button. The Sitra Achra, man.
That darn Sitra Achra doesn't want us. It doesn't want this.
We got to smash them.
Smash that like button.
Smash the like button so you can smash the Sitra Achra. Oh, that's really profane. I don't think I said anything profound. But just to say that he'll be transfigured, right? I think that's really important. To continue the Christological stuff. Yeah, he's gonna die, but he's not gonna die. He's gonna go teach somewhere else.
We've seen that happen. We've seen that begin already, transfigured into Enoch Metatron.
Right. Yep. Okay, so what's this Torah? So he opened, saying, "And Yod-Kei Vav-Kei was going before them by day in a column of cloud to lead them on the way, and by night in a column of fire to give them light, and so as to go by day and by night." I love how the last thing he's going to teach is going to be the journey. Right? It's about how we are in a journey. It's about the journey of Israel, and it's about how God is with them. And I think that's the Zohar is a book about journeys. It's a book about people walking around talking, about these mystical ideas, but also it's a book for people who are in a journey,
right?
Who are in the midst of the exile, in the midst of the galut,
right?
And so, how appropriate to end on this verse.
And here in the literature, here in the story, they're about to depart on the next journey, and he's sending them off with. We'll see who he sends them off with, but
yeah. So it's a what a profound and appropriate.
I didn't notice that. That's fantastic. That's really great.
So the text reads Yod-Kei Vav-Kei and Yod-Kei Vav-Kei, and the Midrashim love to make a big deal about this when it's Yod-Kei Vav-Kei. So and Yod-Kei Vav-Kei, and the accent stands erect above. Zevi, do you want to pull that verse up on? Or maybe
sure.
I'll have to do it because I have to share my screen. But let me finish reading it and then I'll pull it up while we're talking about it.
Perfect.
So, and Yudke Vovke, the accent stands erect above. So we'll see this, what he's talking about in just a second. Why? Well, at that moment, how fine and beautiful was this bride, who until then had been subjugated in exile and now was walking with her head erect among her cohorts in joy. Surely the accent stands erect above. So I think that what they're, and I don't know about what you think about Zevi here, is that I don't think he's talking about the Israelites. The they there is them. It's the Chevraya
Mm.
that they've done it. Like she's come out of her diminishment. She stands erect as a king, and that in some sense the verse is referring, of course, to the Israelites walking in the desert, but it's not the Israelites he's talking about. He's saying, no, this is happening right now. Like you're literally going on a journey. The column is standing before you. So he's like, there's no here and now. There's no here and later in the Torah. I think he's saying that then is now.
That's very beautiful. That's very beautiful. And I missed this when I was reading, and I'm really glad that I may be able to go through this again and learn with you, Justin, because that's fantastic. I think we're in good Kabbalistic fashion. There's three subjects here that we're referring to, which is the Israelites, the Chevraya, and the Shechina. It's all three.
Mm-hmm.
And that's perfectly logical for the Kabbalists, because Shechina is identified with the collection of the souls of Israel, the Knesset Israel as they have it, and the Chevraya, the righteous of their generation, also represents the Knesset Israel and the Shechina. So there's this co-identity between all three, which is totally logical for the Kabbalists. And it's both the Israelites leaving Egypt from subjugation to their head erect. It's the Shechina who's had her head erected after she's been aroused with the help of Israel from her state of being the infinitesimal Yud, the tiny black dot that almost disappeared. And as you're saying, and that's really great, that it's them. It's the Chevraya who came in. Remember how they came in? It's been a while, but they came in with their clothing smelling from not having done the mitzvot, and the Yanuka giving them slack and barely letting them talk, and they've gone through this. He's put them through the ringer, and together they've come out with their heads high, and they've come out in this love and in this marital celebration. Right? What a difference! I mean, I have the first paragraph here of how we started. That the mother says, "Come meet these distinguished gentlemen." And when the child is home from school, he approaches them, the child. But before even getting close, he turns back. He said to his mother, "I don't want to go near them because they haven't recited the Shema. And I've been told whoever hasn't recited Shema is under a ban." They go from literally being under a ban. They go from being these pariahs that he won't even come close to, whose clothing, who smell, and now they're walking out with their heads high. They're walking out as lovers, and this they've been redeemed. This is a redemption story.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I totally agree. I think it's again, it's the literary power of the Zohar is really, really wonderful here, folks. If you're curious about what the Zohar means by the accent stands erect, you can see it on the screen there. That's the word he's talking about, right? And you can see that there's an accent mark there that he's on about, and which is interesting, right? Because he knows the writers of this text know the Masoretic text so well that they can point to individual accent marks and make these Kabbalistic explanations, which is I think why it makes maybe Matt even more frustrated when he just like drops a vav or whatever.
Right.
But this is the accent mark that he's what is it? Pazer? Yeah. This is the accent mark that he's talking about that stands erect, and it is a relatively unusual accent mark, and it functions as a kind of break. And the fact that it functions as a kind of break is going to indicate for the Yanuka that the va and the yodke vovke there's something. Not only is there a like a singing break there, but there's a metaphysical break there.
Yeah. Well, before we get to the break, and that we'll see in a moment, the pazer also acts as a note which elevates.
Mm-hmm.
It's both visually. It looks like it's forked above, right. And also I don't want to subject people here to my terrible Torah cantillation reading, but it's Pazer. It's like it's at least like I'm no Torah reader, but it's an ascending tune, and you see that visually and you hear that auditorily. Whereas like we see above the Lifnehem Yomam, you have Kadma Azla, so it's Lifnehem Yomam. It's like this. It's not. It's each one kind of you see visually what's going on with them, and Pazer means the Hashem is being elevated, and it's not a common Pazer is it's not the rarest, but it's also not terribly common. And when you hear it, it brings your attention. You feel the word that's being lifted up, and here we're lifting up Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. We're lifting up, as we'll see, Shechina, the Chavraya, but someone's being lifted up here.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Again, shows you just how mindful the Zohar is. Like even these little cantillation marks are going to be signposts for very important mystical insights.
Well, presumably, also they're practicing Jews in a practicing community, and they're reading this text at least once a week, and more, and they're with the cancellation, and that's it should be on the forefront of their mind.
Sure, absolutely. And also we get the Vav, right? It's on the Pazer is on the Vav, which they made a big deal about the Vav. It's 6, which is Tiferet, and there's a lot going on.
The Pazer was on the Vav?
It should have been on the second Vav, right?
Oh, on the Vav in the name of God.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Okay, I didn't. Okay, got you.
All right, do you want me to pick up or
go?
Yeah, I think I'm. All right.
Continue.
So was going before them by day, Yomam, right? So by day. So until here, it is not known whether this bride was going before them or not, since the accent interrupts at va, right? It interrupts at va Yod-Kei Vav-Kei and Yod-Kei Vav-Kei. So the interruption tells us that something is going on here important. Well, she was there, but the one going before them was a supernal elder, master of the house, to whom the Blessed Holy One swore. And who was that? It was Abraham, as it was written, Yomam, by day, Yod-Kei Vav-Kei directs his love, chasdo, from Psalm 42:9. And it is written, were it not for my covenant, Yomam, with day and night, the day encompassing all days, the day encompassing all days, the day of other days, all other days, surely. So it surely, clearly. The joke in philosophy, right, is that anytime you hear the word, someone uses the word obviously in a philosophy paper, you know that they don't know what they're talking about.
Nice.
So it's called Yomam, their day, and not Yom, just day, right? Thus, Yomam, their day, was going before their eyes. What was going before their eyes? Day. All right. And what is the day? Right. Their day was going before their eyes. And so don't read just Yom. It's not just a regular day, as if, right? He went before them by day, and the bride went by night, as it's written, by night in a column of fire to give them light. This is the bride, each one fittingly. So this is there's a lot going on here. This is classic, the threading the needle through the Tanakh to make this to make these things work. So far as I can tell, what's going on here is that their Zohar is linking Yomam to Abraham because the verse in Psalms by day, right, it links to Chasdo, and Chesed is linked to Avraham. So it's kind of, I don't know, 2 steps removed to make the link. At least 2 steps removed. But what he's doing there is saying that Yod-Kei Vav-Kei, Va Yod-Kei Vav-Kei, because there's an accent mark there, that can't, because it disrupts it, the Yod-Kei Vav-Kei can't be the noun of the sentence. But the noun of the sentence has to be something else. So what is the noun of the sentence? It's Yomam.
Or is the subject of the sentence?
The subject sentence. Yes, the subject of the sentence. Right. So it's the subject of the sentence. Don't read Yod-Kei Vav-Kei as the subject of the sentence because of the accent mark, right? Because that's to the Yanuka's mind disrupting it. Read Yomam as the subject of the sentence. And what is Yomam? It's Abraham. It's Abraham. And so Abraham goes before them by day, right, as sort of the supernal ancestor, and Shekhinah goes before them by night. And I also think that when he refers to Avraham as the supernal elder, that has to also be a throw to Keter, like
Hmm.
like the
Hmm.
Ancient of Days, right?
Hmm.
The Erech Apayim, like the sort of the more Partsufim kind of language, Partsuf language of of that. But I mean, master, the supernal elder, master of the house, that seems to strike me as a little bit Keter language. Although Keter, it's not associated with Avraham, but as the sort of as a sort of most distant ancestor
Hmm.
in some ways. I don't know. I think that's not a too far off reading, although I don't think Matt goes there. I think he associated with Chesed for obvious reasons because of Chesto.
Hmm.
You got anything there? I mean, it's a
I
bit of a
oh,
tortured.
I absolutely loved this. I love this drush. It was just it really floored me. I think it's so good because it's such a it's such a playful subversion of the obvious meaning of the text.
Right.
Right? Vashem helech v'fneim yomam b'amud anan. Like, and the Lord, Yud Kei Vav Kei, whatever, went before them by day in a pillar of smoke, and at night in a pillar of fire. And here we totally break the sentence by saying what we thought was the subject is V'Hashem and Pazer, that's its thing. V'Hashem and Hashem. Next sentence.
Right.
Hilech lifneham yomam. Their day walked before them. And what is their day? Obviously, Yomam means chesed because Yomam yitav Hashem chazda, Yom and chesed. Sun is chesed, moon is like we're so this it's such a I loved it. I absolutely loved what it did here. And the Avram thing is interesting because we didn't need Avram because we could have just gone straight from Yom and chesed are associated by are associated not just here but in other places by the Kabbalists. Right, the Kabbalists ask, how did Moses know when was day and when was night on Mount Sinai when he couldn't see? And it said when he saw which sphere was ascendant. When it was chesed, he knew that it was day. So this is a common idea, and because chesed is shining, it's that which gives. It's the bright. It's this that we didn't need the Avram here. We could have gone straight from day. There's a few things here which I'm still waiting to tease out. The other thing is that we didn't. It's not right. The last point here that it's not yom. It's not day goes before them. It's not chesed goes before them. It's yomam. And yomam obviously it doesn't mean their day in the grammar of the verse. It means by day.
Mm-hmm.
And here he's switching it to their day. And with Matt's reading, it's the day of the days. It's the sphere of the spheres. It's chesed, which includes the rest of the spheres after them. Which also we didn't need to do, right? We could have sufficed with Yom. Like he's going further to include all the Sefirot within Chesed, and as you're saying, perhaps also within Keter, which obviously includes all the Sefirot where they begin. There may be a sense here where there is a connection between Avram and the Exodus, between Abraham, because Abraham is the one who's promised that his children will leave Egypt with great wealth, and I don't know, or maybe just is, an attempt to bring everything in through Keter.
Right, and it's also like Abraham's important in the journey language because of Lech Lecha, right? Like he's
the sojourner. He's the one.
Yeah, he's the sojourner. So it's what more appropriate
Right.
patriarch to lead you on a journey than the one who's in some sense the entire everything is downstream of his journey,
Right.
that he left the world of Babylon and idolatry and became a monotheist and Ur of the Chaldees. Who better to lead you than the archetypical journeyer?
Right. I just loved how he read this verse. Just V'Hashem.
Yep.
Next, Holech lifneihem yomam. Their day went before them. Their day being Chesed went before them. And also like what like to bring this down into a bit more human common English, he's saying that like may kindness go before you. That's what he's wishing them, right? May kindness lead your path. That's what he's saying. Beyond all of the homiletics and the Drush and the grammar, that's what he's wishing.
Yeah, I mean, you get the whole ancestry. You get Abraham, you get the Moses because of the Exodus story, and you get again, it's like three layers of journeying, and that at the end, right? As you said, right, and the way and again the last is I'll read the next sentence and maybe I'll pass it back over to you. And these are the last words of the Yanuka, folks. Like this is the last. If you want to think of the last words of the Yanuka, this is it. As for you, Chevraya, right? May Yomam Valayla, may your day and your night, may Chesed and Shechina, their day and night be before you at all times. And what lovely! And again, for such a tempestuous, such a brat, he spends so hard on them. What an amazing and what a blessing! What an absolute boon that the Chavraya, the companions, they get the best possible blessing. May Yomam V'Layla, may Shechina guide you at night, and may the mercy that is represented by Abraham lead you by day. Again, night and day at all times you're gifted this boon on your journey. And of course, right, it's the Chavraya, but also the text is speaking to us because we're also on the journey. By going on the journey with the Chavraya, you are part of the journey, and who amongst us is not on a journey. And so what a blessing from this from a character that we've come to know to be so arrogant and so mean, that the last words out of his mouth, really before he passes out of this world, he uses his enormous Torah to provide us with a really profound blessing.
To bless. May day and night go before you at all times. We may have missed a point in the previous paragraph, which is we were talking a lot about the day side of things, but the night as Justin, as you're saying, is Shechina, which is interesting because sometimes when we're contrasting day and night, Chesed being day, we're going to call Gvura or Din, severity, justice, night, and here we're not doing that. Here we're switching that out, which is itself is a sweetening of that severity, and we're saying that it's Chesed and Shechina, not Chesed and Gvura. And the one other thing which Matt points out here, which is worth mentioning, is this verse from Jeremiah that he throws in 33:25. We're not from a covenant with day and night, and covenant, Matt points out correctly, is the Brit, is Yesod, and it's Yesod, which is the connector sphere, which is connecting here Chesed, all the six Sfirot, with Malchut, with Shechina. So we have the full lower higher gamas between Zah and Nukva, between the six Sfirot, Chesed through to Yesod, and then Yesod connecting it to Malchut, and we get that just sort of by this throw-in verse that we actually just looked over. But so he's really bringing together the entire lower Sephirotic realm and perhaps also the upper with Abraham, and that's what he sends him off with. That he sends him off with the entire Sephirotic, day and night, all like day and night, like, and everything in between, like may be before you at all times.
And again, to go back to what we've been saying, we've sort of harped on the idea that the image of the Sphirot, the Sphirot that you see of the perfectly balanced Sphirot, is never what you get in the Zohar, right? Because it's always about we've been focusing on the dynamism, but here they are. At this moment in the Yanuka, the configuration is balanced. Everything is brought together in balance, and it's one of the actual rare moments, I think, in the Zohar where you really do get, something of a kind of redemptive arc. A redemption a real tikkun has taken place. The Hyros Gamos is completed. And it really comes in a literary way and a metaphysical way, that again we're getting. This is a glimpse of kind of the world as it's meant to be. That even the Yanuka has been redeemed, the Chavraya have been redeemed, the world's been redeemed, the Hyros Gamos is complete. It's really a very, very powerful moment that's going on here. And yet, the journey's not over. It's not like everything's done and we all
Right.
You know, the Chavraya have to, you know, they go back to their master.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. There's one other thing which might be worth pointing out here, which is that to make this reading work, we chopped the sentence, right? We chopped off the first word. And we did that with the help of the pausar cancellation. But that itself is another heros is a sacred marriage between God and between Kutcha Bricha, between the divine masculine, and Shechina, the divine feminine. Because did we say this yet, or am I that the vav represents Shechina?
yeah, we didn't say it, but
Right?
you're absolutely right.
And Yud Kei Vav Kei represents Tiferes, the divine masculine. So when we broke that word off, we had an initial Haris Gamas already between and God, and being Shechina, God being God, and God. Those two together were posered into their Haris Gamas, and that was. So I don't want people to think that we ignored that word or we threw it off. Like, he began, the very first word set the tone of union, and then we had it's the V'Hashem, it's the Shechina and Kutcha Bricha, it's the divine masculine feminine, which were united, which then continue into this temporal unity of day and night, of smoke and of flame, and I think it's a very intricate reading that he's doing here.
No,
By breaking it off and allowing it then to inform the rest of the verse. It's really, I was at we have 2-day Purim here in Israel and second day in Jerusalem, Shushan Purim, and I wanted to prepare this one more time before this evening. For me, it's evening, and I was pretty drunk, and I was reading this like at the end of I was at a Purim Seder, and it was 2 a.m. and I was there since 3 in the evening, and it was just I read it there, and I was just sitting myself in the corner reading this, and it just hit me so exquisitely, and it really is. Even after I've served it up, it's still as exquisite.
yeah, it's I mean, really classic Zohar. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that I think when you go to study Zohar, this is the kind of stuff that you want, are these kind of like really masterful hermeneutical touches. It's really lovely.
So delightful.
They came to Rabbi Shimon. So we were,
Oh, they kissed him. You missed.
Oh, that's right. They kissed him and blessed him as before and went their way. Yep. And again, the kissing there is going to be important because that's, it's also foreshadowing, right? They've kissed him before, but this last kiss, the Yanuka is not long for the world, unfortunately. And so they kissed him and blessed him as before, and they went along their way. We come back to Rabbi Shimon, who is the hero of the Zohar, who we hardly see, but we get another little cameo of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai.
Nice.
So they came to the Rashbi and told him the episode. They said, "Listen to all these things that have happened," and he was astonished. That's a big deal, by the way. When the Rashbi's astonished, he did it. This is a dude who does some. This is a guy who does the astonishing. He does not get astonished, but here he is astonished, and said, "How worthy he is, but he attains no name." All right, so we get the sort of prophetic, and I guess we were talking about Netzach and Hod not really getting any play, but here we get a little Netzach Hod action with some kind of prophetic stuff on the part of Shimon Bar Yochai.
Coming back to Yoda.
Yeah, we're coming. So, but he attains no name, right? He's going to be the Yanuka forever. We're never going to know his name. He's condemned at some level. When a thin stick flares, it flares momentarily and is immediately extinguished. It subsides. And furthermore, I've already said where this light came from. We've all heard the phrase, right? The flame that burns twice as bright only burns half as long. And Yanuka, precisely because of his incredible precocious power, is destined to not live very long, and therefore he'll never attain a name. He'll be forever just the Yanuka.
And he never gets old enough to not be the child. That's his final station.
Yep. So this is so we get a little prophecy, right? So we have the Rashbi engaging in some prophetic. So we get a little Torah from the Rashbi from Shimon Bar Yochai. He opened saying, "Mighty upon earth his seed shall be. The generation of the upright shall be blessed." When a person is mighty upon the earth, mighty is here, mighty in Torah, mighty over his impulse. right? Mighty upon the earth, surely his light ascends and an abundant flow streams into him. Uh, the light that's streaming into him is streaming into him from his father, the Sava. Then the generation of the upright, Yevarech, shall be blessed, spelled Yevarech. He shall bless. So it's spelled as he shall bless.
Mm.
And who's doing the blessing, of course, is the Yanuka is blessing all of us because he is so mighty in the Torah. But Rabbi Abba said, we've seen such children saying sublime words and later becoming leaders of the world.
Mm.
Surely we've seen children say all kinds of things and they don't die young, right?
Mm. They don't want to hear. They don't want to hear what Rashbi is saying.
No, it's hard. It has to be absolutely heartbreaking what they're hearing.
Yeah.
At some level, like, hey, like maybe there's a chance, right? At least there's a chance.
They're crying when they're saying this. That's what's happening.
But they're heartbroken, man, because this child is so. And Shimon Bar Yochai has to break the.
Sorry, say Justin.
Yeah, and Shimon Bar Yochai has to break the hard news. If a child says a word or two momentarily, unintentionally, a person can be confident they will succeed in the Torah's teachings. But this one, whose light endures firmly with full awareness, not so. Right? Furthermore, the Blessed Holy One yearns to smell the aroma of this apple. Happy is his share.
Oof.
Yeah, I guess I'll, just what I think that this text is saying here is that, there's some genius little kiddo gowns out there, right? They say they may astonish us with ever so often with words of Torah, but this kid is something else. And I do love how it ends there, the image of smelling of the apple, that it's the contrast between how the Yanuka smells the lack of Shema on them, but Hashem smells the righteousness of the Yanuka. This whole parak, this whole Yanuka begins and ends with the aroma, with aromas. That he pushed them away because of they reeked of not having done Shema, and God brings near because he smells the righteousness, the extreme righteousness of the Yanuka. So a heartbreaking moment, but a moment of profound that God is not taking him out of the world because God is the world doesn't deserve it, doesn't deserve him. The Yanuka is meant for another world.
It's a haunting paragraph. This sense of God desires the innocent and desires him close to him, and therefore he leaves, and he must leave while he's still innocent, and it's really haunting and tragic because for the Kabbalists, and for classic rabbinic Judaism in general, the words of the righteous are not just descriptive, they're prescriptive, right? The tzaddik goes over Baruch Mekayim, with the words of the righteous, the words of the sage become reality from the rabbinic and certainly from the Kabbalistic perspective. And when Rashbi, when the Kabbalists, when the face of God are here on earth, Shimon Bar Yochai says that this child will not see the day where he will no longer be child. He's not only predicting, he's also condemning. His words are they're formative. They create reality for the Kabbalists. And when the Chavraya, who have just fallen in love with this child and they've gone through the craziest journey with him and they've battled with him, they finally come out as the dearest of friends that have been sent off with day and night. They're begging their master, don't say that about him. Why? And Rashbi, right? And Rashbi is looking from above. Rashbi sees the reality and he's telling them, I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry you fell in love with this fleeting beauty, but God is going to smell that apple while it's still fresh. And I'm sorry, I can't do anything about it. And they're like, no, but there are other children out there, and why? It doesn't have to be like that. And he's like, I see the cosmos, and I wish, but it's so tragic. It's such a tragic moment.
Yeah, and I think that, but I think it's even more because the Rashbi has a unique power, maybe and he has many unique powers, but he has one unique power, I think, among any character I know of, is that he's able to actually petition for people not to die. Right? They know he has this power.
Yeah.
And I think at first they say, well, maybe there's just a chance that naturally he'll survive, but they're going to push even harder in just a minute, and it shows you their extreme grief and desperation to save the Yanuka. And of course, it won't come to fruition that way.
Yeah, they're pleading for his life here.
Yeah, I mean, this is really the life and death moments. Zevi, you want to pick up, or you want to more analysis, or do you want to?
Yeah, I just one more thing on this verse that we had in here, Psalm 112:2, of the mighty upon his earth, his seed shall be, generations of upright shall be blessed. This is a very interesting verse that we're bringing in here because, and the reading that we do is mighty upon the earth. So mighty, we need to read mighty in Torah, mighty in spirit, mighty over his impulse, as the Mishnah reads that Ezehu Gibor HaKovesh HaTzitzura, who is the mighty one who conquers their impulse, and we're now reading that as applying it to the Yanuka. But also we're saying this surely, right, means we're reading it literally, that he's mighty upon the earth, and that's where he's mighty. Like it's gonna be in the earth, and it's calling it to the grave, the might, in some sense, to the earth, and which is very ironic. It's a very ironic twist of the verse, because Gibber Ba'arti Yazari Derisham Varach is a verse of longevity.
Mm-hmm.
It's a verse of blessing people's seed to last. Like the seed goes into the earth so that it can flourish and grow. Der Yishar Mivarach, a generation of upright, of standing children. Right? We had the standing pause there. We had the upright Shechina, and this very verse, which is about longevity, still used today as a blessing for longevity, for children, for healthy children, is being here used to condemn a child to the grave. It's a very sardonic, twisted reading of the verse. It's a dark chapter. It's like this paragraph is really dark, and it's really and that flipped reading is rough.
Yeah, or we would have to read it in a way that would elevate it in some kind of way, and to not read eretz as in this world, but as malchut, that he'll be elevated, right, to his own supernal realm. He'll go to the upper earth, the upper realm, because he's as happy as his share, right? That at some level that the Yanuka will get his just desserts, that he's not meant for this world.
Right. And part of that is that he's not shall be blessed, because he won't be blessed with long life, but he will be the one that blesses.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And he gave us that beautiful blessing that may day and night go before you.
That's right.
Right. And that's part of the read here, is to switch from the blessing to the blessed. I don't know. I mean, I know we're about to read that he finds his place up above, but to me, like a child dying is a child dying, and whatever theological nice packaging we're going to try and bring, for me the tragedy is here, and I feel the tragedy on behalf of the Chavraya, you know.
Oh, for sure. And it's both and, right? That's the beauty and the horror of that's the water and the wine, right? That the Yanuka, we're going to lose him. He's going to die, and yet he will survive his death in a certain kind of way and go on to bless us. And so the Zohar is not a Pollyannish text. It's never going to leave us with an easy answer, and that the child dies is and again, we're living in the real world. We're not going to get a happy ever after story. I mean, it's a Jewish text. What do you expect?
Yeah. Yeah, but I like what you said there, Justin, as well, that the Yanuka lives on, right? He's alive because he's here when we're reading him, and he's speaking to us, and we're touched by him, and he's still blessing us. He's blessing us with friendship, with study, with companion, with his poetry, with his zingers. He's still alive, and whether or not he was a historical character is a different question, but he's here.
Yeah, for sure. And
happy is his share.
Happy is his share.
Ashrei Chalkei.
All right. Do you want to pick up the couple more paragraphs?
Happy are you, O righteous ones, of whom it is. So this is now Shimon Bar Yochai speaking to the Chavraya, who are presumably beginning to mourn the premature predicted death of their beloved friend. Happy are you, O righteous ones, of whom it is written, the remnant of the house of Judah shall add root beneath and bear fruit above. 2 Kings 19:30. Root beneath, like his father, the great fish, who has departed from the world, right? The Yanuka is an orphan, as we know, and is root beneath in the heavenly academy, and bear fruit above in the supreme academy. How fine are root and fruit. Were it not for the fact that I would be accusing the Holy Blessed One, who yearns to smell his aroma, no one would be able to prevail over him. But may be the will that his mother should not experience any suffering because of him. And so it was.
So it's again, we end with this. I love the fact that they choose that line from 2 Kings, the remnant of the house of Judah. There's no way that we're not going to read ourselves into that. We are the remnant of the house of Judah, right? Like that. It's a greeting to the Jews who wrote this, to Jews who read it. That you're on a journey, just like the Chavraya. You're a people of loss and exile. And I love the imagery of root and fruit. That again, it's the mirroring language. It's the language of a balance. That this balance has been struck. At a terrible price, the death of a child. But we're not going to get off easy. And at the end of it all, were not for the fact that I would be accusing the Holy Blessed One, the idea that Shimon Bar Yochai would have to go basically, accusing God to prevent this from happening. But the best he can do is hope that the Yanuka will die after his mother dies. So at least his mother doesn't have to mourn the death of her son, who's already mourned the death of her husband. And at the end, so it was that it appears that the mother will die before the Yanuka, and then what we do, that's all we know. That's the fate, the ultimate fate of the Yanuka, is that he won't, his passing at least won't trouble his poor, long-suffering mother. What an understated ending too, at some level too, at all this, right? That v'chein hava.
And so it was.
V'chein hava.
It's interesting as well. This verse from 2 Kings 19:30, and I think it's important to pay attention to the verses, because the verses are really the bones of this. It's the sacred. It's the writ, the sacred writ which they're expounding here. There's a bit of an unexpected twist here as well, and it's a twisted reading. And I'm sorry if I'm being rude in saying that, but we have this root beneath and the fruit above, right? We would think what fruit above is what happens in the supernal Seratic realm. Root beneath is what happens down here on earth, right? The Yanuka gets to be the root down here, and he gets to have these effects. And Rashbi says, no, the root beneath is not here on earth. The root beneath is in the heavenly academy, and the fruit above is in the supreme academy. He's different levels within the Seratic, within the divine, and he really wishes that he could do something for the Chavraya, for the Yanuka, and he's bringing these verses, and he can't even do the drush, which would be so obvious to do, and the drush, doing that drush, could save his life, right? That's what it is. They're creating reality with their drashot, with their readings, but he can't. Root beneath is very high up. It's not down here. It's how fine are root and fruit. Matt brings this nice note on the previous page from the Talmud, Chagiga 13a, that there once was a child who expounded on chashmal, which is a very strange word in Ezekiel chapter 1, when Ezekiel sees the divine throne, 127, and which is really claims. the core of mystery, and the child bursts into flames. That the fire comes and consumes him. And Matt draws a nice parallel here between nice is the wrong word, a terrifying parallel between the child who dies in the Talmud in Chagiga and the child here who we don't see him burst into flames, but we're kind of left. It's left PG, but we're told that he has not much time left down here.
Yeah, and you also get the sense, and this is to the point you made a few times ago, is that he's going to go to not just the Heavenly Academy, he's going to go to the Supreme Academy, and you get the sense that, with the Chanuk Metatron language, and the bursting into flames, the bursting into Chashmal, that maybe he's again to the more Christological stuff. Maybe he gets transfigured. Maybe we're linking the Yanuka with Enoch Metatron too. That he's at least going to go learn from Metatron, because that's the head of the academy, the heavenly Na'ar. Yeah, maybe it is the case that the Yanuka is the kid and the Chagiga that burst into flames. But what a way to go! I mean, and again, it makes some sense, right? If that the language of when a thin stick flames, it burns momentarily.
Yeah.
At least you get a sense that he doesn't suffer, not too much.
Right. It's also interesting that we're reading this right after the verse of the pillar of fire, which leads them through the desert, which is saying that he's burning before them. He's the pillar of fire that leads them through the desert, through the darkness of life. And what happens to a pillar of fire is that it turns into a pillar of smoke. Right, he goes from being the fire of night to smoke at day, and smoke then turns into, rises above to the supernal. So he's enacting the blessing, right? He sends them off with day and night, with cloud and smoke, and he becomes he goes up in cloud and smoke. He's this there's a sacrificial sense here almost.
He's a korban.
Yeah. There's also this is the point which Matt makes, which is quite profound, which is that we're differentiating the two academies, the heavenly and the supreme. And Matt, I don't know what his source here is. He has a source in an earlier footnote that in the heavenly academy, which is the lower of the two, in there sits Havnuna Saba, the father of the Yanuka, and is headed by Metatron. But the child, the Yanuka, goes higher than the place of his father and higher than Metatron. He goes to the place where only the children who have died, the Tneka Shleichatu, the children who never tasted any sin, that they're right there by God in the Supreme Academy, higher than the sages, higher than the angels, higher than the quasi-divine Metatron. Right? It's quite a powerful read, which is a Kabbalistic motif that the child transcends the father, that Yafakeicha ben Mekeicha of the child reaches places where the father could never reach. And here we see the child. The child is not only transfigured into Enech Metatron, he transcends Enech Metatron. Yeah. He goes to where Enech Metatron does not go, which is a really wild statement.
Yeah, I mean, considering that Metatron is Yahweh Katan.
Yeah,
I mean, again, you get some sense. Again, the fact that if you transcend little Yahweh, what else could you become?
Mm-hmm. Well,
Raza to Raza.
Right, Vidal.
Yeah. Let those that understand.
Great. For the wise, a hint is enough.
Yeah. And I think, there has to be what they're hinting at. I think that the son, this again, he's called a son of God. That he comes down here, teaches, bewilders everybody. He kind of gets called back to God, dies unfairly early at some level, right? And then goes back up and becomes united with the Father, or at least in some level goes to dwell very close to God, to the divine,
the Father and the Mother.
Right. It's a little on the nose, but I think that I think that we're also seeing here the more of the Christological stuff.
I don't know. I don't know if it's Christological. We're still
Still debating it.
debating. There's a very persuasive text from a book, rather, from Shal Magid, Hasidism Incarnate, where he argues that divine incarnationalism and theosis and apotheosis is actually Jewish before it's Christian, and that's based on some just standard Second Temple scholarship, which seems very well grounded, and then he argues that whole incarnational and apotheotic tendency gets suppressed in classic rabbinic Judaism because of Christianity.
Mhm.
But for the mystics that don't care about speaking Christianity, like the Hasidic masters or the Kabbalists who are doing it to be on the nose against the Christians, they're fine. They can be Jewish and incarnational. They can be Jewish and apotheotic. And so to say it's Christological based on Maggid's reading, which I find persuasive, is a backwards look. It's Jewish. Yeah, the Christians did this too, and therefore we turned it down. But when the Jews are writing their thing, they're writing this is our theological language, and we think it's Christological perhaps because that becomes the dominant paradigm in the West of human divine commingling. But I think I don't think it has to be read that way. Yes, it's Christological de facto historically, but fundamentally, I don't think it is what I'm saying.
Right. I think it's both and. I think it's both like how the Zohar is deploying it, man, and also knowing where it was written, why it was written, and the cultural context, and also just the way the Zohar polemicizes against non-Jews and all the dreadful and racist ways that or not racist, but xenophobic ways that it does. That I think they're absolutely doing their it's both and. I think
it's like a reverse Christology.
Yeah, I think they're self-consciously doing it. I think they're. I think that these are tools that are in their tool belt, and they're using them to do double duty, to both express their own incarnational ideas, and their apotheotic ideas, but also I think they're not. I mean, it's not like the Zohar is at all disinterested in ribbing and polemicizing against the Christians.
Right. Hallelujah.
So I think it's really a case of both and, which makes a lot of sense to me.
The point which I'm maybe just trying to make here is that I think sometimes when we say that a reading is Christological, people might think that there's a Christian agenda or a Christian, and that's not the case. Like it's a Jewish theology which may be anti-Christian, and that's what I'm just trying to.
No, I think it's they're certainly not, and I think they're not even, and also it's to say they're not aping Christianity. They're using tools indigenous to Judaism to polemicize, in a very, very specialized way. That would have definitely gone over the heads of anyone reading this text, assuming Christians could have read it in the Middle Ages, which they couldn't have had. But also it's covering, in lots of ways. Well, that was a journey. And again, folks, page 296, surprise, becomes page 297.
We didn't finish the Zohar. Surprise, surprise.
Surprise. We're just in the middle of Parshat Balak.
Parshas Balak, the Parsha goes on.
The Parsha goes on. He sent the messages to Balaam, son of
Beor. Oh yeah, sure did. Yep. And that's going to lead to Drush.
Yep, and that'll open, whoever's next.
The story goes on.
It does. We're the Chavraya. We're on the journey, and with hopefully with the blessings of the Yanuka to guide us, and so it's in that way we're very it ends on a very powerful and a very sad note, and I think that's typically how truth goes, is that that you're never going to get an easy truth. Easy truths aren't.
Yeah.
And so here with the Yanuka, we come to we come to an end. But I think the good thing is that we're not quite done with this. We've done some hard work, and folks watching have done some hard work with us, following along with these 9 weeks. I don't even know how many hours. An hour and a half times 9. It's quite a bit of time, a chunk of time. 15 hours or something, maybe more, that we've gone through studying the Yanuka. Now it's time to celebrate that we've really accomplished something. And so a little siyum is in order. And so I think we're going to have some kind of celebration for having studied the Yanuka. I say studied, not learned. I know that learned is more, but I want to be careful because I don't feel like we've exhausted by any means. But it's been a blast.
Yeah, I have some gratitude, which is due. Gratitude to you, Justin, for initiating and for the idea and for hosting and for being my partner in this study and in friendship, and that's something which I'm deeply grateful for, both on screen and off screen and on live and off live. So that's firstly. Gratitude to Daniel Matt for translating this terrifying text for us and making it more accessible for us and for the audience. A huge accomplishment and a tremendous and years of work. And gratitude to the authors, whoever they are, for putting this together and sharing their wisdom. Gratitude for my teachers here in Jerusalem that have guided me in my Zohar study, and most recently, Melilla Helmer-Eshad, a queen of the Zohar in her own right. So those are some of the thank yous.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also thanks for everyone in the chat who's been coming along with us, and for the patrons of our channels that make it possible for us to do this. It's amazing that we have the opportunity to do this kind of learning and also to transform it into teaching. And that's I feel very grateful to have the opportunity to learn and to teach and to share what little I know, and to make this stuff accessible to folks. Again, the Zohar is an important text in the history of Western esotericism and the history of world spirituality. And if we can make it a little bit more accessible and less intimidating, if we have done that just a little bit, then I will feel very blessed and very, very, very thankful to have been able to do that. So, yeah, it's funny because this began as just a lark. Like I just literally reached out to Zevi randomly on whatever. I was like, "Hey, you want to study the Zohar in public?" Zevi he was game, and here we are. Whatever, 15 hours later, 16 hours later. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. This has been a lot of fun, and I don't think it'll be the last time we do something like this. Zevi, you up for another round at some point? Not soon, but at some point.
I sure am, and I sure hope this is not the last of it.
Yeah, God willing, with the help of heaven, we'll have more Zohar in the future. But folks, look forward to a little celebration, a little Zohar celebration coming up. Hopefully with some pretty special guests, God willing. And I just want to thank again everyone who's had the time to study with us and learn with us this amazing and important text of world spirituality, not just Jewish spirituality, but world spirituality. Very grateful for all of you, and very grateful for the opportunity to do this study. And thank you all very much.